Tonight, we review an aging Charles Bronson in Death Wish 9.
I wish I was dead. Hey.
The Pod Bay doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com. Sitting here with my non-gun-toting cohort, the critic, dare I say legend, from TalkMovieMe.com, Mr. Doug Heller. How the heck are you today, sir?
She's gonna be alright. They said all she has is a broken arm.
I'm sorry she expired.
But you told me over the phone she only had a broken arm. There was no trauma. There was no anything else. It was just after she gets raped. Oh, she's gonna be fine. She just has a broken arm. Nothing else is wrong.
Welcome to Death Wish 3.
Wow. It's like killing roaches.
You
You have to kill them all. Otherwise, what's the use? This is disgusting.
It spins its wheels and it goes absolutely nowhere.
All it is he's just remorselessly murdering people. I mean, granted, they're not good people, but he's literally comparing people to roaches. Like, this is a man who just does not have any humanity left.
Well, this is Death Wish 3. And I have to say, in the annals of bad movies, this falls in the category of fascinating, only because it's kind of barely made.
Yeah.
It's not really even a movie at all. It's just kind of an idea, and there are things that happen in the movie that are kind of swiped at, but they don't make any sense. They're not followed up on.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's notable for one major thing. It is the acting debut of Bill S. Preston Esquire. Bill S. Preston Esquire. Mr.
Winter.
Alex Winter. That is correct. Who said, you know what? I don't want to do this rape scene. So hey, this extra wants a bigger part, so he can have my role in this scene.
Yeah. Even Alex Winter distanced himself from this movie. Yeah, this was one of those. This is a canon film.
This is our third canon film in a row.
You're welcome, by the way. This is our third canon film, and I think at the time, this is 1985, and boy, does this movie reek of 1985. Because
this is just a year after Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yes, it is. Not too far away from Breakin' 2. And at the time, Charles Bronson and Chuck Norris were Canon's biggest stars, and neither of them are really bad actors, but they made a lot of shit in their careers. And the thing about Charles Bronson in this movie is, and it's famously said, he didn't want to do this movie. He hated doing this movie.
Yeah. And
I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
And he does not hide his disdain, because, I mean, he is barely there for this movie. It's not a performance. I mean, he's on screen doing stuff, but he is absolutely giving it the bare minimum. He's just not even... He was 64 years old at the time, and I think he went in because the original script for this thing was a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, in the first two movies, in the first one, his wife is murdered. In the second one, his daughter is murdered. And in this one, it was going to be that a war buddy of his living in New York had uncovered some evidence of a criminal drug ring and gotten himself killed. And one of his friends, the Martin Balsam character, called him in to help. Because the neighborhood...
Now that would have actually made a half decent cover story for the bloodbath that is this movie.
And what pissed off Bronson was the fact that it kept changing while they were making it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it just kept changing and kept changing and kept changing. And this movie is Grand Theft Auto. So everybody's running around, everybody is cartoonish, they're all killing each other, and everybody, and 90% of the city is bloodthirsty thugs. and there's like 12 people in the movie that are like law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
And they all live in the
one
only
apartment building.
They all live in the only apartment building that is not reduced to rubble.
Yeah, pretty much. What it wound up being was these thugs broke into this guy's apartment and kills
Charlie.
him, and it turns out to be an old war buddy of Bronson's.
Which I don't understand, because I'm not sure what they were trying to steal from this man, because all he seems to own is a chair, a couch, and a bunch of war medals.
Well, I think that he was, I guess,
He was stirring up trouble.
Yeah, he was starting to get to a point where he was gonna start shooting them, and they wanted to take him out before he drew his spine and started fighting back.
Or organize the 12 citizens
Right.
into a group that wasn't going to take this anymore.
So, what he ends up doing, he gives Martin Balsam a Browning 30 caliber or 20 cal. What is that thing?
It's
Machine
a Browning
gun.
It's a Browning M2 machine gun.
That he brought back from the war.
Brought back from Korea.
Not only, but he brought two of them, and he brought other stuff. He's like, so it's some of the stuff that he brought back from the war. Nobody just brings these home.
Can you bring that stuff back
No!
from the war? I know
They
guys
don't just,
in World War
they
II
don't
brought
just go,
Nazi
well,
stuff home, but
I guess the war is over, so you could just take your machine gun home with you. No!
this is not a rifle. This is the kind of machine gun you mount on the back of a Jeep.
Yes.
This is when you're on a hill and it's on a stand, and you've got a guy feeding you the bullets.
Yeah, this is what General Mandrake was shooting at the defense forces in Doctor Strangelove.
Yes.
This is
It's
the
that.
thing. Yeah, this is the thing that they had on the tripod when they were threatening David Bowie in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Like, this is not.
And this is not a weapon that you hold in your
This
hand.
isn't a handheld thing. The barrel of that gets so hot that they literally have to stop so it cools down, because otherwise it will literally melt itself.
Can I switch? I got to switch gears here, because I got to tell you a little bit historical concept.
Wait a minute. One more
Okay.
second. He also has a rocket launcher. Okay, proceed.
Yes, he also has a rocket launcher. That's how he takes out the bad guy. I got to give you
In
a
the
historical.
apartment. How does that not kill everybody?
How did those three guys not all end up as charcoal bricks?
I don't know, because he doesn't fly out of the window and blow up outside. He blows up at the whole apartment would have been destroyed.
But the body is on the ground, like Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. I mean, it's
Yeah, like it wasn't an incendiary device; it was an explosive. And also, cars explode. Cars in 1985 were apparently also lined with dynamite, because when she runs into, she just has a minor accident, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then both cars just spontaneously explode for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I got to give a little historical
Anyway.
context to this, because this is funny. I love this.
There's just some crazy shit here.
I'm going back and watching all of the old Siskel and Ebert episodes. I'm making a YouTube channel where I'm uploading their episodes called Misadventures of Siskel and Ebert. And I want you to know, this is the movie that Siskel and Ebert reviewed on their show immediately following their review of Showa.
Oh, wow. Talk about a gear grinder. Ooh,
Breaknecks, yeah.
ooh,
Breakneck shift.
my God. That dropped
you
the
don't know
transmission
Showa.
right out of the car.
If you don't know
Ooh.
Showa is this miraculous, amazing documentary by Claude Lanzmann, where he does all of this investigative reporting on the Holocaust, not just on
It's a
survivors.
4-hour Holocaust
9
documentary. 9-hour Holocaust movie, that's right.
And he nails down. It's incredible, because he nails down, like, not just the details of the survivors, but the people who were responsible, who held the clippers when they gave them a haircut, who who opened a door to the gas chamber, who stood on the sidewalk and watched the gas wagons go by, and it's remarkable. And Gene Siskel called it. He said it's the best use of film I've ever seen. He said, "Thank God movies exist so movies like this can happen." And then
Coming up next,
immediately,
Death Wish 3.
talk about a breakneck shift.
We're gonna move from the Holocaust and the one of the single greatest tragedies in recorded history,
And one of the greatest movies ever made.
to a guy brandishing a mini African hunting rifle as a pistol in his hand, where he makes his own bullets. It's a mini elephant gun. Is basically what the 475 Wilder. And it's clip loaded too. It's not even like the 44 Magnum where you get 6 shots. He gets
I suspect
like
that
9.
had something to do with the fact that one of the most popular series at the time was Dirty Harry. And I think what they were trying to do was they were trying to give Bronson like bigger guns.
Well, actually, that was his own gun.
Well, I mean,
And
what I'm saying is
he
they had to
decided,
give him.
hey, I want to bring this in so that because it'll be a very different kind. It's a weapon nobody's ever really seen on screen before. So I want to bring this in, and they were like, yeah, do it.
Well, I mean.
But
Dirty
yeah,
Harry had
it's a
44.
direct competition. Yeah.
Right, it's direct competition. And the funny thing is, and I get where Bronson was with this, because the first movie was made in 1974, also directed by Michael Winner. And
The first 3 were directed by the same guy.
that movie was a real movie.
Yeah.
It was about a guy who he lived in Chicago. He was an architect. He was a liberal, and some thugs, led by Jeff Goldblum, broke into his apartment and murdered his wife and raped his daughter. And the system that was supposed to be giving him justice was just moving at a snail's pace and wasn't helping at all. And he got angry, and he went out and he got a gun from a friend of his and killed a thug.
Basically,
And
it's
that-
the Punisher.
The first time that he kills somebody is on his stairwell, and it's a real scene because Bronson is like Paul Kersey is like surprised that he did this,
Mm-hmm.
and he's ashamed of himself, but it becomes addictive, and it just the
And
movie
to this
challenges
point,
you.
it just doesn't care. He just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, by this point he's Rambo. That's
Yeah,
what he said.
these aren't people anymore to him.
Yeah. Well, they're not people in the movie really,
No,
because
not really.
they're
Well,
painted.
honestly, there are no real characters here.
There are no real characters in this movie. Even Paul Kersey's not really a character.
No.
But he moved to L.A. in the second one, and that was just a bloodbath. Then, for some reason, he got called back to New York, or excuse me, quote unquote New York.
Well, Charlie sent him a letter, and he was concerned, so he went back, apparently breaching an order that he was never to set foot in New York again for after the first one. I have never seen the first 2, nor the last 2. So I'm coming into this with just seeing this, and he's remorseless. He's callous, and he's he's apathetic. Like when the trap goes off.
Mm-hmm. Which one? The Home Alone traps?
Is when he sets off that trap, right? That booby trap that he sets up for, the first one does it hits the guy, and the guy whose apartment it is, he's like, oh, what's that? And he smiles. He's like, teeth.
Isn't that the guy? Isn't that the Jewish couple?
I don't know.
I think he sets it up in their apartment. But he sets up a Home Alone trap in his in Charlie's apartment with a little board with the nails in it.
Yeah.
And like he comes back, and there's like blood all over the floor and like footprints, and he's smiling.
Yeah.
It's because honestly, this is a place where thugs just crawl in anybody's window at any moment, and and people don't nail their windows shut or anything like that, or
put bars on the windows.
Put bars on their windows,
or I don't know, buy a gun.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning, because when he gets into town, as he's getting off at the Port Authority, we cut to Charlie's apartment where he's being assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
He's being brutally murdered by these three guys. Yeah. And one of them is Alex Winter, who, apropos of this movie, is at one point sitting on the couch and has fallen asleep.
Yeah.
And
I made two of us.
They brutally murder this guy, and there's some talk about protection money.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
something
there was
like
some
that.
kind of a racketeering kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like you pay us the money and we won't come into your apartment and murder you. And apparently he's starting trouble because he's getting everybody kind of organized, the law-abiding citizens kind of organized. And
he's packing some significant heat.
Right. And Bronson comes in just as he dies. And
he is immediately arrested for the murder
by the worst cops in the history of anything.
It's like it was the 1930s. You know, the 1930s investigatory style. Hey, you were 16 feet away from here. You must have done it. The guy's been dead for 16 hours, and I just walked past here. Nah, you did it. You're guilty. You were here.
We're not going to ask any questions.
No, we're just going to assume.
We're just going to assume that you were there.
Or they ask questions in a really roundabout way, like my cousin Vinny, so that they think that they're talking about a can of tuna, but they're actually talking about a murder.
Right. Well, they drag him in, and they bring him to Ed Lauder, who I guess is the police chief.
I think he's a captain, a precinct captain.
He comes in and he starts beating up on Charles Bronson. And then Charles Bronson says something about, what about my constitutional rights? And I'm thinking, okay, you've murdered 30 people by this point.
Oh, at a minimum. Not only that, but Lauder says, after L.A., it seems you went pro because 6 creeps dead in a week, and then there was some in one city, and then there was another city where 4 other people got killed.
Well, he's under an assumed name too, but Lauder knows who he is.
Yeah.
And he's under the name Kimball, and he kind of hires him.
Yeah, he basically says, I'm not allowed to go in and clean this up I'm not allowed to go in and just mow everybody down. So why don't you go in and do that for me? And throw us an arrest here and there so we get a good headline and we get good press.
And he tells him basically go to hell. And he gets thrown into a real Grand Theft Auto holding cell with all of these sort of cartoon characters.
Oh man, that was...
And one of them is the gang leader played by Gavin O'Hurley, who was the asshole boyfriend in Superman 3. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't look like any gang leader you've ever seen in your life. He's really tall, really skinny, really white, and way too articulate for this dumb haircut that they've given him. Because his hair is like shaved down the middle.
It's a reverse mohawk.
Yeah, it's a reverse mohawk, and there's like paint down the middle of it.
Yeah, it's basically he gave himself a male pattern baldness and then painted it. Like I don't.
You would expect this guy to be talking like, just kind of be slavering and gravelly voice. No, he's just talking like we are, just like anything. And he gets somebody pays his bail, and he gets out, and you never find out who that person is that paid his bail, because later on he calls in a favor. He calls in from another movie or something, and because
as it says in the quotes page on IMDb, he dials 1-800 rent a thug.
well, it's like Blazing Saddles. He calls in, like Harvey Korman, calling in the, all of those.
I want rustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, Indian agents, Mexican bandits, muggers, buggerers, bushwhackers, hornswagglers, horse thieves, train robbers, bank robbers, ass kickers, shit kickers, and Methodists.
That's basically what happens. Because it's so confusing, because the gang that he's leading, I can never decide, are they a street gang or a cult or what? Because he gets out of jail, there's a guy who has taken over the gang, and he kills that guy.
Yeah.
Is this the mafia or what?
I think that this is a caricature of gangs written by people that don't actually know what gangs do and why they exist.
Minority gangs.
Yeah.
Because you notice it's this United Nation of minority gang members.
It's the colors of Benetton.
with pipes and sticks and guns. Bronson meets up with Martin Balsam, who's an old war buddy of his.
No, they never
for
met
some
each
reason
other.
still.
They were both friends of Charlie's.
Oh, okay.
Martin Balsam met Charlie in World War II. Bronson met him in Korea.
Korea. Okay. Well, he gives him the idea, says, the apartment is paid up through the end of the month, so why don't you just stay there? That becomes like his hideout.
Base of operations.
His base of operations while he takes care of this problem.
Oh, man.
Which is funny because outside of Ed Lauder looking at it, there's really no reason for him to stay there.
No.
But
well,
he
feels. I think he feels obligated because his buddy died, and he was coming because the letter sounded like it worried him, and he was like, well, I better check on him because he sounds like he's in trouble. And he walks into the apartment and he's dying. So he was right. He was in trouble. So he's staying.
He makes friends with the other people. There's an old Jewish couple that lives on the first floor, and there's this. I don't know if they were husband and wife or brother and sister, but it's a Mexican couple.
Oh, they were married.
Were they married?
Yeah, Mariana Sirtis was the woman, who apparently so Michael Winter, the director, is a terrible, terrible, awful person.
Yeah.
When they were filming her rape scene, which she not only did not want to do and felt very uncomfortable with, but couldn't say anything because, she would never have worked again. She, that threat of, if you don't do the nudity, you're never going to work again.
Destroy your career.
And she's like, I'm not going to let this asshole destroy a dream that I've had since I was 6. So, but while they were filming it, it took like a day to shoot the scene, and she's laying on this mattress, almost nude. Not even the mattress, on the ground, and he wouldn't cover her. He wouldn't let her cover up. She was cold, and the cinematographer put a blanket or a coat over her, and Winter got mad, and he took it off because he was trying to light the scene, so he wanted to see everything. Yeah, he was just an awful.
Well, let me give you the context of this, because in the first one, there is a rape scene, and it is really nasty, and it's.
I dare you to name a rape scene that isn't.
But I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, it's to a point.
Right.
Because what it's trying to illustrate is the tipping point of what pushes Paul Kersey to become a vigilante.
Right. It's like the rape scene in A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. It's what pushes him. But here, like everything else in this movie, it comes to nothing.
Yeah, it is.
Because once they announce her death,
Yeah.
she is out of the movie and never mentioned again. I don't even think
No.
I don't think the husband is in this.
Oh no,
Again.
he is. He comes back.
Is he?
He helps. He helps with the extermination. And then,
But it doesn't mean anything.
no,
And it's
no.
just gratuitous. And it doesn't
the
have
guy
to be
cries, and then he gets steeled, and then he's resolved to help Paul murder the.
But again, that's one of those things that just kind of swiped at
yeah.
and not really dealt with.
Yeah. It like they get there, and she's like, "Oh yeah, she's dead." He's like, "But you said she only had a broken arm." Like,
And she formed a blood
well,
clot.
yeah, the whatever happened, it took X amount of time, and it formed a blood clot, and it went loose and killed her. Those things do happen.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, at least there was a reason. At least she didn't, like, I don't know, die from a broken heart.
Yeah.
You know, a la Padme. So, but yeah, like he just kind of converts over, and then he's like he's over Paul's shoulder a number of times when they're getting ready to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then when the extermination begins.
You mean when Manny calls in reinforcements from 5 other action movies?
Right. And
because he calls, he gets tired of it. He calls.
I mean, it's like the Wild Bunch after a point. Like, people are just coming up to get shot, and then like get.
What'd you think of the Cuban? Is the Cuban? They kill this guy called the Giggler.
They had no right to do that. Really?
They killed the Giggler, man. He killed the Giggler.
They had no right to do that, man. Really?
Because that comes out of this weird scene where Bronson gets the idea to go out and buy a car with cash just so that it can be bait
for them to like go up to it so he can shoot them, which he does.
Yeah, he walked. Oh, it's great.
Because these two guys are like jacking the car, and he's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" It's like, "We're stealing a car. What are you doing?"
Back up a second.
Oh, okay.
Back up a second, because he's invited to dinner with that old Jewish couple.
When they say it was stuffed cabbage, who says yes to stuffed cabbage? Who? Who thinks that smells good? Who thinks that smells good, though? Who knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I could tell you are cooking cabbage. I want some of that." Now, he was over 60, so he probably did need the roughage, but...
Listen, in this neighborhood, that's probably the best smelling thing around. But he goes to dinner with this very nice Jewish couple, and in the middle of dinner, he gets up, he walks outside, and 2 guys, minorities, are jacking this car, and he says, "Hey, what's wrong with it?"
Hey. What's the problem?
What?
With the car. What's the problem?
Just get out of my fucking face. Who are you?
We're stealing the fucking car. What's it to you? It's my car.
Now you gonna die.
We heard shots. What happened?
I sent them a message.
And he shoots these 2 guys dead and just smiles and walks back in and sits down and has his dinner. And it's just... yeah. A double homicide in the street. Because, I mean, the cops aren't going anywhere because there are about 40 times more criminals out there than there are cops, because you see the entire police force.
Because there's more criminals per capita than there is actual money in the neighborhood. Like,
I was thinking the same thing.
Why terrorize the projects? Like,
how does the store keep running? There's a
I don't-
grocery store there. How does it keep running if everybody's going in and robbing the place all the time? Half of this movie I don't even understand. It's like, but half of it's not even really meant to be understood. There's a romance in this movie that I swear is grafted on. Deborah Raffin shows up in this movie. I think she's the public defender. His
she's the
constitutional rights
public
were.
defender that
If
she's
they do
trying
that,
to
then that means they're going to start digging into his background, and they're going to find out who he is, and they're going to find out that he is the vigilante that's been working in LA and Chicago and New York and wherever the hell else.
What am I gonna do? How's that gonna look in court, really? But then she like kind of
Okay, now we should also explain. She's in her early 30s. She's about the same age that he was when she was born. And he looks terrible in this movie. I mean, he looks like a pumpkin left out in the sun. I mean, he just with a mustache. And the kissing scene, and they spend the night together, and it's just again like everything else in this movie, it comes to nothing. She's killed by Manny by Fraker, and
right, like he hits her and pops the emergency brake, so she goes down a hill. Right, she wakes up in enough time to swerve, sorta, and get into a large damage accident, but not a physically harmful one. Like, they were probably all right. And then both cars explode as if they're just like as if everybody just has dynamite in their trunk that just goes off for no reason.
And Bronson runs out and he looks at this. The look on his face when he realizes she's died is the same look I get on my face when I go to the grocery store and find out they're out of Cheez-Its.
Right? Like,
damn it.
Another one.
Yeah. I mean, and she's never mentioned again.
No.
She never comes up because
He's
honestly,
not. He never tries to avenge her. He's avenging Charlie. He is continuously avenging this guy, not this woman that was murdered because she knew him.
Not the Mexican woman who was raped and murdered. I mean,
Right.
not the
No. Old war buddy.
old war buddy. I mean, stay focused.
Yeah.
Stay focused. But I mean, this woman is just like, and Bronson again. That's his performance. He's just, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
I
he
really
is.
don't.
He is ambivalence incarnate in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's like the only person that is visibly more ambivalent than Charles Bronson in this movie, or Bronson in this movie, is Bill Murray in well, a lot of
Any
later
Ghostbuster sequel.
Oh, I just watched those.
Sorry.
Or like the like Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
Just sits there.
Just
Ring a
sits
ding
there.
ding. That's one we haven't actually talked about. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well-
he's apathy just as a person. It just assumed human form. He's Apatulu as a human.
And he
Like
so doesn't want to be there. My favorite moment in this movie is when they kill the Cuban, because after he kills the giggler, who's this wiry little guy that runs around giggling, and he's a purse snatcher, and
he's a fast runner.
and
As his
that's the
nickname
guy
would give you.
That's the name. That's the one that he kills with the hand cannon, the elephant gun.
The elephant gun.
And I mean, that's brutal, because I mean, he like gurgles
That
when he
thing,
gets shot in the
that
back.
thing
with
that thing shoots people. It pushes people back like he's shooting a Wookiee bowcaster. Like,
Yeah.
and he does not have any recoil whatsoever. But the person
No.
flies 18 feet away. Just is carried
kinda
by
like
the force of the
Eastwood.
bullet.
It's kind of like Eastwood with that 44 Magnum. There should be a kickback, because it's actually said in those
Yes.
movies. That thing kicks like a mule.
Yes.
and you have to have a hand strength to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And he's taking these, well, I mean, again, this is a movie where he's taking the M2 Browning and he's holding it in his hand and he's shooting these guys. I mean, yeah.
Like he's a G.I. Joe guy.
Yeah. But the funniest
I
one
had a
is when
G.I.
they
Joe
bring
guy
in-
that had one of those, but even he had two handles and a thing that clipped onto his thing, so it like a support. Like even
Right.
he had help, and that was a toy.
The gang is so proud to bring in the Cuban, and they bring in this guy, and Bronson immediately
like a
takes
ringer.
him out and throws him off a roof. And it's the worst dummy you've ever seen because the camera lingers on it as it collapses on the ground. And it's...
It's almost like a Monty Python thing where you just see this obvious dummy just fly in the air and fall on the ground.
and it lands and it folds over. It's hysterically funny. I love that scene.
If it were actually like as graphic as it should have been, it would have been like Midsummer. But instead, it's like the Muppet Show.
Or maybe the opening scene of Lethal Weapon, or something like that. But it's like the Muppet Show. You're just throwing a pillow off
And you just
off
like,
a roof. And it just like folds over comfortably.
Oh, jeez. It's, I mean,
I love at the end of this movie. Oh my God, when they go back to Charlie's apartment, and Fraker is there. It's because Ed Lauder gets involved in the war at the end, and for some reason Ed Lauder keeps calling him dude.
Right, and he like saves his life. I owed you that one, dude.
If there's anybody who shouldn't be saying dude, it's probably Ed Lauder.
That's.
But they're fighting in the streets, and this is a war fought with machine guns, and Ed Lauder has a
and rocket
pistol.
launchers.
And rocket launchers, and Ed Lauder has a pistol.
Right.
And they end up back at Charlie's apartment, and Fraker is there. And Fraker is going to kill Bronson. And something happens, and Bronson, he gets distracted, and Bronson whips around and kills him with a rocket launcher. That is wrapped in the American flag, no less.
If there was ever, and there are two movies in my mind now that absolutely represent Reagan's America.
Mm-hmm.
Death Wish 3
Mm-hmm.
and RoboCop 1.
Yes. And Red
Those
Dawn.
two. Oh yeah, okay, so 3. Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, it's the rocket launcher is wrapped in the American flag, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. He whips around and takes Fraker out, which blows up the side of this building, and they come back.
And it was the only apartment building that people could live in.
And the only damage it really does is it takes out part of the wall. And I'm like, okay, the three of you should be dead.
Yeah, the whole building should have been leveled.
Right.
Like, that's not.
But that's not the funniest part. The funniest part is the fact that he gets killed. When he gets killed, the gang just gives up and leaves town.
No, the funniest part. The funniest part is when the neighborhood residents rise up in the wake of Paul's massacre, right? And they come running out and they shoot a couple of guys, and then they pick up their guns and they're giving them to everybody, and they're just shooting and all happy. And then kids come out behind them and are little kids, 8, 5, 7, 8 years old, 10, dancing with joy in the street amongst corpses. An entire street littered with corpses. Only in America in the 80s. Would children dance with joy amidst corpses in the middle of the street?
On fire.
Like, and these kids are like, yay!
And then
like everybody's just picking up like, okay, let's all become murderers. And
then the denouement is Charles Bronson just leaves town like a Western. Like
he just rides off into the sunset. It's like,
right, he takes his bags and he leaves, and I don't know where he goes in Death Wish 4, but I don't have any real interest to find out. He made 5 of these. Can you believe that?
Yeah, 5.
And Bronson's a good actor. He made a good movie. If you want a better movie, God, there's infinitely better movies than this. But a better Bronson movie than this, watch a movie called From Noon Till 3 that he did with Jill Ireland. It's actually a pretty good movie. Or the first Death Wish, if you really want to see this done right.
But the Once Upon a Time in the West.
Once Upon a Time in the West, yeah.
Probably his best role.
Wasn't he in The Great Escape?
Yes.
Yeah, I also watched The Great
Escape. And The Magnificent Seven.
And Magnificent Seven. He's a good actor.
So he was a wonderful actor.
He did to his career later on what Liam Neeson is doing to his career right now.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
Just these interchangeable action movies where he's playing the same character over and over again.
Yeah.
And you can't discern one movie from another.
Yeah. That's sad because Liam Neeson is an incredibly talented actor.
Charles Bronson was an incredibly talented actor.
Yeah, they both were. And at least Chuck Norris didn't have anything like good for us to regret that he wasn't doing anymore.
If you've ever seen Code of Silence, directed by Andy Davis, who later directed The Fugitive, that's a really good movie. But Chuck Norris is a much better actor than the movies he was in. But there was that one movie that was kind of amazing. It's the one where he drove a pickup truck out of a grave with one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand on a 6-pack of beer. I mean, only Chuck Norris.
Only Chuck Norris. But then you see something like Breaker,
Force of One,
or
the worst was Invasion USA.
Yeah. You've never seen Breaker?
I've never seen Breaker. Was that a trucker movie?
It's a trucker movie.
Yeah.
It's a Chuck Norris trucker movie.
Yeah, I saw
from
a
the
movie.
70s.
I saw a movie not too long ago. It's called Convoy. And I was like,
oh, that's a Sam Peckinpah movie.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? And I was like,
that's with Chris Christopherson. Chris Christopherson just died.
It sounded like a Hal Needham movie or something.
Yeah,
it has trucks but it's a serious movie.
Yeah. About
a war between truckers and cops. It's got Ali McGraw and I think
Chris Christopherson.
And what's his name? Paulie from Rocky. Burt Young is in it. And the sheriff played by Peckinpah perennial Ernest Borgnine. It wasn't a good movie.
No.
I was actually expecting a comedy.
Really? You saw it directed by Sam Peckinpah and you thought, this is going to be funny.
No, I saw trucks and cops and I immediately thought of Smokey and the Bandit. I thought it was a comedy. Because I was like, this sounds like a Hal Needham movie or something, one of those Bert Reynolds movies.
Yeah, no such luck.
I loved, like I say, I'm going through all the Siskel and Ebert shows, and there was one where they did a segment where they were talking about the faltering, Burt Reynolds' faltering movie career, and their advice to him is, do us a favor, make some movies, but never get into a car again. If there's a car in it, if there's a car chase in it, don't. Just throw the script in the garbage and don't do it.
Don't do the movie. Just don't. Do something else. Just do Oh well, then he did Airboats in Gator, right?
And that was before.
Well, yeah,
That was in the early '70s. That was between Deliverance and Smokey and the Bandit.
Right? Yeah.
Burt Reynolds wasn't a bad actor. The problem was that at the time that Burt Reynolds was a superstar, he was parallel to Clint Eastwood, who was a much more engaging star and made better movies.
Well, and Burt Reynolds was more of a comedic persona,
Hmm.
and he definitely could have been even more of an action star,
Yeah.
but he was more of a comedian. He wound up being more of a comedian, especially later on.
And he
in, like,
tried to
Evening Shade
keep
and
that.
stuff.
He tried to keep that, and Tom Selleck was guilty of this too. Tried to keep that ladies' man Lothario kind of persona going long after that kind of character had gone away.
Hmm.
And they were in their 60s still trying to do that.
Yeah.
And it is just gross. And, they're hitting on these 25-year-old women, 25-year-old girls, and it's just, yeah. It's... It was out of date and just nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Burt had that brief comeback with Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
But what happened to his career? Even he had to say, he said it was his fault. He said, they don't give you an Oscar in Hollywood for being an idiot.
Right.
Because you remember the whole debacle with Terms of Endearment, is that he was offered the part that Jack Nicholson played, and he turned it down to do this movie called Stroker Ace, which he played a stock car racer who's basically, the whole movie's just basically sexually harassing Lonnie Anderson. And it's just, it's awful, and it destroyed his career.
That's how they met. Aww.
Yeah. They met on his shitty movie.
Aww.
And,
How sweet.
yeah. Well, he kind of, I take that back. He did have a kind of a comeback on television, because he did
He
Evening
did. He
Shade,
had
which
Evening
is-
Shade, which was very, very popular. I remember watching that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that he did Boogie Nights, and it was his last film was something about like an aging star that was trying to get another role, and it was a really good picture.
I don't
It was a
remember
really
that
good part. Yeah, a lot of people. He did one like that, and there was another actor that did something like that just before they died, and then people were like, "Oh yeah, they'll probably get an Oscar nomination for it, or win something posthumously," and then it was like completely forgotten about.
There is one movie that is completely forgotten, and I wish people would check it out. It's a movie called Breaking In, and Burt Reynolds plays a professional burglar, and it's directed by Bill Forsythe. If that tells you anything, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
And he did much better. He did much better with Bill Forsythe than Robin Williams did, because Being Human was dog shit.
yeah. Well, there were only a
Anyway.
few people who successfully directed Robin Williams.
Yeah.
But that's really all I have.
Yeah. What more can you say? It's Death Wish 3.
They're like cockroaches. If you don't kill them all, what's the point?
And that's where he tried to turn that into a character trait,
Right.
because he kept saying that.
Yeah. It's like, ugh. So, all right. Next week,
From hell it came.
we're doing From Hell It Came, which this is funny because usually I'm the one that kind of picks darker, just heinous atrocities to cinema, and this time I picked breakdancing and a revenge-driven murder tree, and you've given us
vigilantism
and mental illness and trauma upon traumas upon traumas.
I did movies that are fascinating.
And I did, you know what? I think Breakin' and Breakin' 2 are kind of fascinating in the fact that they got made and people went to go see them.
Yeah, but you're not watching Breakin'. You're not watching either Breakin' movie with your mouth hanging open, going, "Oh my God."
True.
At least Breakin' and Breakin' 2 are fun.
Well, yeah, and From Hell It Came is. So, natives on an island. To make a really a long story short, natives on an island. Guy gets killed. He vows revenge, and he comes back as a murderous tree stump. And it was the movie that gave Stan Lee the idea for Groot.
I haven't seen this yet.
Yes, it's so it's a miracle that MST3K never did it, because it's perfect for them.
And beyond that, we're going to wrap up Turkey Month with a Hallmark movie called Invisible Child. And I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'm not going to say what it's about. I'm just going to say it's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it?
Gotta put that really big question on the end of it.
We're gonna looking forward to it. I'm just glad to have my voice back. I've been sick the last couple of weeks.
So, I think that about wraps it up here for us. Do us all a favor here and hit the like, subscribe, and notifications buttons down there so that you can know when we're going to be doing stuff. We are going to be at some point reasserting ourselves in the social media arena, but at the moment we are absent from there. So just see everything that we have on the YouTube site here. We thank you very much for listening, and the pod bay doors are now closed.
Nice men. My sister said know him. I married him in 1931.
Come on, get the fucking car open!
Excuse me, please.
Hey. What's the problem? What? With the car. What's the problem? Just get out of my fucking face. Who are you?
We're still in the fucking car. What's it to you?
It's my car. Now you gonna die.
We heard shots. What happened?
I sent them a message.